Morning. Hillary Clinton is not taking many questions from reporters, but her husband Bill is talking a blue streak, defending his wife in an emotional interview with Jake Tapper, who makes his debut as host of CNN's State of the Union on Sunday.
There are polls that show that fewer and fewer Americans think that your wife is honest and trustworthy. And this has happened at the same time with these questions about the foundation, questions about her email. And that must really bother you.
Yeah, but I mean, we're used to it. And the only thing I would say about this is, number one, I'm glad it's happening now because I trust the American people. And I trust her with my life and have on more than one occasion. She was always, whenever I had trouble, she was a rock in our family. I was the youngest former governor in American history in 1980 on election night. I got killed in the Reagan landslide. And people I had appointed to office would walk across the street. They were so afraid of the new regime in Arkansas to not shake hands with me. My career prospects were not particularly bright. And she never blinked. She just said, hey, it'll turn around. I believe in you, you got to. And we built a life together based on, the things we cared about and the things we loved. And we were blessed with a daughter who turned out pretty well, I'd say.
Also insisted donors to the Clinton Foundation did not seek favors from Mrs. Clinton while she was Secretary of State because, as Mr. Clinton said, she was pretty busy during those days. And Mr. Clinton says he never saw his wife study a list of contributors to the foundation. All of this on the eve of Hillary Clinton's first big campaign rally that takes place tomorrow here in New York. With me now to discuss, Kiki McLean, former senior advisor for Hillary Clinton's 2008 campaign, and Sabrina Schaefer, executive director of the Independent Women's Forum. Welcome to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, Sabrina, I want to start with you. You heard it. Mr. Clinton said we're used to it. That is being accused of things. And the Clintons have been accused of things like shady financial dealings, even murder. So will voters say, oh, this foundation thing is just one more thing?
I know he's so talented as a public speaker that he's able to sort of brush off years of scandal with such elegance and grace. The interesting thing is that we haven't, and Kiki and I were talking about this before we came on air, we haven't really gotten into a substantive debate on policies, either on the Republican side or on the Democratic side. And so voters are paying attention to other kinds of cues, things like trustworthiness. Is this somebody who I feel comfortable with, who I can trust? And right now that is something that is a problem for Hillary Clinton. And we'll see. I think her husband may be correct that as we get into the bigger debate, this is an issue that voters will forget about. But right now it's top of mind.
Absolutely. And Kiki, it is interesting. Mr. Clinton is portraying his wife as the rock in the family, always supportive, and a grandma, too. Hillary Clinton's camp started an Instagram account, and it showed like a rack of suits. She was poking fun at herself, yet her trustworthy numbers have fallen. So is this really working?
Let me tell you what's important to recognize here, and that is there are polls that show that all the attacks haven't done damage to her. My 13-year-old son, on the way to school in the car this morning, he said, Mama, they're trying to demolish her. And I said, they're not doing a very good job, are they? And he said, it's not because they're against her, it's because they're afraid of her. I mean, even a kid gets it. And here's two things I do know. Number one is that the Clinton Foundation saves lives, and number two, that Hillary Clinton wants to fight for America's families. And I'm glad of both of those things. And I think what Sabrina raises, the issues of this campaign are going to be defined by the American people. And she'll start that conversation in a big way tomorrow. And I look forward to hearing from her. And I think voters want to hear from all the candidates. But tomorrow she's going to tell people what motivates her, why she's the kind of fighter she is, and the kinds of issues that she wants to fight for them on. And I think that's what they want to hear about.
Well, Sabrina, I will say, do you think that most of America knows what the Clinton Foundation does and will understand what the Clintons are being accused of?
Probably not, and not because the American people are stupid, but because people are busy and they have busy lives, and a lot of these scandals very often seem kind of convoluted, and it's hard to track who did what when. But what they are hearing is that there's suspicion around Hillary Clinton related to the foundation and to an email scandal and some there's problems, right? And so what they're waiting to hear now is, where does she stand on Obamacare? Where does she stand on energy policy? Where does she stand on workplace regulations? How is she going to implement, policies that are going to help this middle class that she talks a lot about? And how is she going to differentiate herself from other candidates, namely those running on the Republican ticket, who are going to have very different policies? And I think that's what's going to really be much more interesting. I'm ready to get beyond the scandals because there are a lot of pressing questions facing the country right now.
You're absolutely right about that.
You can mark it that Sabrina and I are in agreement today, that that's really what people care about. And so when she talks tomorrow about what motivates her, and we all have people who have influenced our lives, and her mother's story certainly did, about the kind of fighter she is for families and kids, and that they ought to have a champion. And when she goes out on the road and she listens to and visits with everyday Americans and bringing their concerns about what isn't just about economic opportunity, but really a permanent prosperity for them, will be the kinds of things that they care about. So for today, Sabrina and I can be in agreement.
That's the one thing.
I'll just throw out there is that, personally, I do find it terrible that we have people running for public office who are embroiled in scandal. And one of the problems is that we have sort of the career politician, or the person who, is in the business of politics. And I think that is very concerning, and the American people should have a conversation about these scandals. But I also hope, like Kiki says, that ultimately we can be talking about much more, and then they'll have to weigh those two things.
See, and I love a person who's committed their life to public service. I'm really proud when people commit their lives to public service like Hillary Clinton.
I have to end it there. Kiki McLean, Sabrina Schaefer, thanks to both of you. And a reminder, you can catch Jake Tapper's entire interview with President Clinton Sunday, 9 a.m. and noon Eastern on State of the Union.